We got a couple requests, so we wanted to show you how to make Mapo Tofu. It's one of the most popular tofu dishes on the planet for good reason, I think. I mean, just look at this. So to start Mapo Tofu, we need Sichuan pepper. Now, there's no sub for this. This dish is the mala flavor profile, so we're going to need some heat together with the nummingness of the Sichuan pepper. Now, if you toast your Sichuan peppers, you're going to get a lot more flavor out of them. You're just going to toast them on medium-low heat. Move them around so you're careful not to burn them. You'll know once they're done, once you can start to smell their fragrance and they leave tiny little oil splotches in the wok like this. Once they're toasted, grind them up. We're using a little mortar and pestle setup here. You can use a coffee grinder, but for the small amount that we have here, a mortar and pestle is convenient enough. And let's just say that I'm not the most phenomenal of dishwashers, and I'm a touch uneasy about the prospect of Sichuan pepper flavored coffee. So once that's grinded up, let's prep the rest of the ingredients. So be smart, crush your garlic, that gets the skin off way faster than peeling, and get that into a fine mince. Next up, doubanjiang, chili bean paste. Absolutely essential ingredient. Give that a quick mince so that you don't have big old beans floating around your mapo tofu. Now for this tofu dish, we need some mince. It's used for flavoring. Don't put too much in. Either pork or beef is fine. Just make sure that it's got enough fat. We'll also be using some stock, and because we're supremely lazy, we're going to use the standard water and concentrate mixture. It'll come out just fine, I promise. So for this recipe, we're using soft tofu. Note that soft tofu is not silken tofu. It's a bit firmer. If you use silken tofu, you're not going to end up making mapo tofu. You're going to end up making mala tofu mush soup gunk. Now, if you're living in China, you might see a soft tofu that sort of looks like the one on the left at your local market. It's generally a bit better than the supermarket tofu on the right, but every vendor's tofu is going to be a little different: taste, water content, texture, so forth. So we decided to go for the supermarket tofu first so that we could make sure that you could replicate this. Second, because that's generally the tofu that you'll get if you're abroad in the US or Europe or where have you. So drain your tofu. Then pat it dry with some paper towels to get as much excess moisture out as you can. Be sure to get all the sides. We're using about a half a block here, 230 grams to be precise. Cut that into cubes by making one horizontal cut, followed by a few vertical cuts in each direction. You should be getting cubes that look roughly like this. Now, we're going to gently simmer this tofu in salt water. This does three things. First, the salt water gets out some moisture from the tofu and firms it up. Second, it'll get out the so-called grassy taste from the tofu. And third, it'll slightly season the tofu. Be sure you're at a very gentle simmer here, though. Once the tofu is slightly swollen like this, in about 2 or 3 minutes, take the pot off the heat and soak it till we finally end up putting it in the dish. To stir fry, we're using Sichuan Caiziyo here, which is a crude, unprocessed canola oil. It has a very distinctive taste that seems to go really well with Sichuan flavorings. You could use standard canola, but try to use Caiziyo if you can for maximum super authentic bonus points. Toss in a good slug of it. To fry the mince, we're doing the hot pot cool oil method with a medium-high flame. So be sure to break up your mince into pieces. After a couple minutes, your mince will start to look like this. Notice the distinctive color that the caiziyo gives it. Add your chili bean paste. Start frying it with the heat down to medium. The goal here is to extract the hongyo, the red oil, from the chili bean paste. It'll probably take a minute or two. You know you'll be ready for the next ingredients once the oil has an obvious red color like this. Toss in your garlic and your chili powder. We're using about a half teaspoon of a pretty fiery Guizhou chili powder. Now, everyone's got a different heat tolerance. Just add enough chili powder to get to the level of what would be medium heat for you. Fry that for a minute or so and then hit it with your stock. We're going to let that simmer for a couple minutes as we season it. Add some soy sauce, some liaozhou or shaoxing, and some sugar. Taste the liquid. It should feel slightly undersalted at this point. As that's simmering, take out your tofu from the pot of hot water earlier and strain it. Toss the tofu cubes into your liquid and be sure that the heat's up high enough so that you get a really hefty simmer. This liquid's going to reduce as it's cooking the tofu. We're going to stir this gently by pushing the tofu back and forth. You don't want too heavy of a hand here, as these tofu cubes can break pretty easily. You're going to simmer that for about 3.5 minutes. Once it's really starting to boil away and looking like more of a thin sauce, add your seasonings. This is going to be the toasted ground Sichuan pepper from earlier and some vinegar. Prepare a slurry of 1 teaspoon cornstarch with about a tablespoon of water and then toss that in to thicken. Cook for a few more seconds, then turn off the heat. Add a touch of sesame oil, about a teaspoon, and give it a quick stir, and we are basically done here. Quick word of warning if this is your first time making this. Your final result might be a touch on the soupy side. That's fine, it'll taste better that way if you mess up the other way around and reduce your liquid too much. Serve this up and be sure to get all of that beautiful red oil at the bottom of the pan. This is Sichuan food. Don't be shy. I promise it's not going to feel oily when you eat it. Garnish with a bit of green onions for color, and look at this. Your cubes are perfectly intact, and you got that awesome sheen of the red oil. A little bit of heat, the numminess of the Sichuan peppers. I hope you give this a go. It's pretty easy and looks and tastes real impressive. So yeah, if you've got any requests, feel free to leave a comment below. If we know how to make it, we'll do it.